Hey everybody, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. In this video, we're going to be looking at the Aztron foiling range, but really focusing on the updates for 2022 and the new boards they've got in their range, two completely new sizes this year. Aztron first came into the foiling market a year and a bit ago now, originally with their first Air wing, which actually did take part in our 2021 wing test, and it was definitely the cheapest wing available. Just like that, all of the foils and the boards are also very competitive prices from Aztron. We've already reviewed the range last year in 2021, and a lot of you have got that gear off of that review, and you've given us lots of good feedback over the last year of how you've been getting on with it. So for the stuff that hasn't had new changes this year, probably best to refer back to that video for a bit more information. But two of the biggest standouts that you'll notice straight away on their website is the two new Falcon X boards. We have an inflatable and we have a hard composite bamboo carbon board. Same constructions as the other two boards in the range. Remember, those two boards were bigger. They were 7'6" for the Air board and a 6'6" for the carbon composite board. So let's dive straight into the new composite bamboo carbon 5'10" board. This is a shorter base winging board, and you could also use it for SUP surf foiling as well. Getting the length and the weight down in the nose is going to make your board way easier to ride when you're up on the foil. It's also going to allow you to do more maneuvers and jumps and really help crack your jibes a little bit easier than having a much longer board with more nose weight, which generally pulls you down. Aztron have done a lot of work onto the bottom shape of this board, huge double concaves, a big central V, quite a healthy amount of rocker throughout the whole of the board, and it really does make it easy to ride up and down off the foil. So even if you're getting into the sport, it's a very forgiving board to touch down onto the water's edge, even in the choppiest of conditions. It's fitted off with the standard sort of double US fin box, so pretty much all foils will go onto this board. It's a very competitive weight board, and this board, compared to the previous 6'6" Falcon, has had some big developments onto the deck as well. There's a nice deep carry handle with this one, and also there's a good setup of foot strap plugs that you can place your foot straps in, so you can offset your foot straps, you can have a central back strap. The deck pad is nicely finished off. You've got that large EVA kick pad at the tail, so if you do want to ride strapless, you have got a good reference point for where your back foot can go. And the general look of the board is pretty funky, well finished off with the graphics, the colorways, and the actual construction of the board itself does seem fairly hard wearing. We have been knocking it against a few walls and things, and there hasn't been any paint chips or anything that we should note. The Falcon Carbon X is retailing at £799, so you do get a fair amount of board at a good construction for that price. This definitely could be a board for an improver, wing surfer or SUP foiler, but also you could enter it as a little bit more of a beginner if you are maybe that 80, 75 kilos and down, because you've still got enough float in the board being 110 litres. And because of its general square outline, it is fairly stable to ride when you're off the foil. Moving on to its inflatable brother, this is the same construction as the previous Falcon Air last year, so it's still a double chamber board. So you have an internal small chamber that you have to inflate first, and you have an external chamber. Gives the board a good amount of stiffness. We didn't actually put this board in our deflection test because it's so short. If you put 15 psi into this board, it feels incredibly stiff under your feet. That's probably due to the double chamber that's giving you that extra bit of stiffness. Nice big chunky EVA deck pad throughout the board, and you've got a raised kick pad at the back. This board comes with a leash that you can fit to the nice big chunky stainless steel D-ring. Also on top of this board, I really like the double handles that are fitted onto the side of this board. So you haven't got a central handle that you're probably going to be tripping up and standing on a lot of the time when you're foiling and wing riding. And these handles actually double up as a few good things, obviously for carrying the board, but also for climbing back on the board. It really helps having the opposite handle. You can lean over and pull yourself up on the board. Another one of these things that we weren't realizing it until we actually used it on the water. The way that they've done the foil box is like a solid unit from top to bottom, a double US foil box system, and you have actually got a deep tuttle box going throughout the whole of the board as well. The thing I really like about this system here is when you're riding it, you can basically feel exactly where to put your back foot. You plant your back foot over the solid foil box. It's a really easy, good reference point. And then when you're riding it, you feel very connected to the actual foil underneath, because it's almost transmitting all that energy from your foot straight down through the box and into the foil. This is a cheap price point board at £549, but it rides just the same, if not better, than some other inflatable foil boards that we've already ridden on the market. So a very compact, direct and stable feel on the water. The other thing that this board has improved a lot since the last year's Falcon Air we tested is that board sat a little nose down when we were riding. This board has a much flatter profile. So it's actually a little bit easier to use, that when you touch back down in the water, the nose doesn't catch and slow you down too much. Riding the two boards, obviously the composite board, you're going to find it's going to release and touch down to the water. It's going to be much nicer than the inflatable. The inflatable has much more of a stall to it because of the actual PVC that actually tends to grip and suck to the water. The composite board is going to give you that more performance, but for this, as an inflatable, and the way that the foil is set up on the board does actually make it fairly comfortable to use. It's still quite a nice wide board with a big old wide tail, so for its size it's fairly stable as well. I probably wouldn't look at the 510 Falcon X Air as a first timer unless you are pretty confident using boards and you're fairly lightweight. You're probably better off looking at the bigger board, because if you are doing maneuvers off the foil, you're jibing, you're tacking, you are going to have a little bit more balance required to keep yourself up on this board. Before we move on to giving you a quick highlight on the wing this year, let's give you a quick recap on the foils. They still have the same range of foils as they had last year. They have a 1450, a 1650, and then they move on to an 1800H and a 2000H. The H foils, which is the 1800 and the 2000, are a little bit more high aspect ratio, a little bit more longer and thinner. They are definitely quicker to use through the water, but they're a tiny bit more technical to use when it comes to making your transitions and jibes. The 1650 and the 1450 are that more all-round shape, that more lower aspect ratio. Definitely the sweet spot foil for me and for a lot of you out there is still going to be the 1650. It is still the easiest foil to get into foiling out of the Aztron range, and to be honest, it's a very comfortable foil to get into foiling compared to a lot of other brands on the market as well. It comes with a good sized tail wing, a nice length fuselage, and you have got quite a few different lengths masts you can get as well. A 700 mast is probably the size most of you are going to start to look at. Unless you're going to be using it in really choppy waters, then you might want to go for a longer based mast. For more information on sizes and what foil will be best for you, check out the previous video, which I'll make sure there's a link at the end. And that 1650 sitting at around £649, and you get a full sort of foil bag with that as well. It is incredibly cheap price point, and probably it's some of the cheapest foils on the market. So actually you are getting a lot of foil for the money to get you into this foiling sport. Now moving on to Aztron's air wings. We have used these in the past. The team have worked quite a lot on changing the profile strut of the wing to give you a bit more stability in the wing, and also this year they have increased their overall wing size to a 6 meter in the range as well, so you can get a 3, 4, 5 and a 6. These wings are sitting around the £500 price point, so you're getting a very competitive price wing. And that does mean you can get yourself set up from Aztron for around about £1,700, which is a lot of gear to get you on the water. And it's definitely the route that a lot of you have gone into, as I said, from last year's video. Apart from the size and the strut profile, the wing is virtually the same. It's quite a high aspect ratio wing, so it's not a short and fat wing like some other brands have got. It's quite a long and thin wing. It's got 4 handles, one larger handle at the front here, which means you can move your hand around to make easy adjustments, which is the sort of thing that a lot of brands are putting into more first time intermediate wings. They're giving you bigger handles so you can slide your hand around the wing much easier when you're getting into the sport. There's a maximum pressure of 6 psi. The wings are inflated with a standard SUP pump, but they are not supplied with a pump. It comes fitted with quite a nice coiled leash, and the main material is triple ripstop nylon. The performance of the wing, it doesn't have as much power and performance as maybe wings that are 3 times the price, but it is aiming at more of the entry level market because of the price point, and it is a light and easy wing to move and get you into the sport. But if you're requiring a lot of power, a lot of grunt, maybe wings from another brand are going to give you that more power. But for what you get for the price, it's again the sort of wing you'd expect to get yourself into winging with. And having that 6 meter now is going to give heavier riders the ability to get out in those lighter winds now. So let's highlight some of our cons and negatives, or things to be aware of the Aztron range. Well, keeping on the wing, as I said, it's a slightly more high aspect ratio wing, so it does tend to catch a little bit in the water compared to the shorter, fatter wings. It's not a massive problem, it's just something to be aware of. So maybe if you're using this wing just with an inflatable paddleboard or a composite paddleboard, but not on a foil, you're riding at the water surface, you might find this wing drags its wingtips a little bit more than a more compact wing. Another thing with the wing is the front handle could be a little bit further forward and tightened up a little bit, so a little less baggy, bringing you closer to the wing. It's a very small thing, and it's the sort of thing that if you haven't used lots of other wings before, you won't even notice it. It's only because we use lots of different wings, we think having that small change will make the wing ride a little bit better. If we look at the Falcon Carbon X board, turning it over where the foil attaches to the board, it isn't actually a dead flat part of the board. So when you put your foil on, it does rock from side to side a little bit. You can screw it down nice and securely, but I would like to see that section a little bit flatter so we have a good connection with your foil connects to the board. Again, when we're riding it, didn't notice anything on the water. It's just an observation when we were putting it together. And the only other thing to say, which is really an observation, is the finish and the fittings on these wings and foils and boards is absolutely fine, and it's a fairly high level, but it's not as high a level as a board or a wing that's 2 or 3 times the price. It's completely to be accepted, so maybe the screw heads don't go down as flush as I'd like them to be. It's something that doesn't make a difference to your riding, but again, it's a price point thing. If you're going to be buying a package or a cheaper price wing like this or foil like this, it's absolutely accepted. If I spent £2,000 on a foil like this, I would not expect to see those sort of things. But in summary, there are lots of pros to the new Aztron boards that have come into this year, the existing foils that are already in the range, and the new bigger size 6 meter wing. Without a doubt, Aztron is going to carry on getting a lot of you into the wing side of the sport and even into the SUP surfing side of the sport. Again, big praise is due onto the 1650 foil. Couple that with a composite carbon board or even the inflatable board. These boards are definitely a little bit more technical to use than the bigger base boards. So if you're first looking for a first time package, maybe look at the longer boards that are already in the range. But these new 2 shorter 5'10" boards are going to give a lot of the progressing beginner intermediate a good board to start cracking those jibes, going even faster, and maybe even start a little wave riding as well. If you've got any questions and comments about any of this gear, let us know. If you owned or used this kit before, please let us know. Even better, get yourself a review on the SUPboarder equipment pages of these products and let us know your full reader's review. And any pros and cons we can then feed back to Aztron, because Aztron are definitely a brand that are trying to improve their gear into the future and give us all the best user and rider experiences out there for the money. Thank you very much. Hope you found this review interesting and informative, and we'll see you on another video real soon.